Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Katie. I love talking about books, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be sharing with you guys my winter reading wrap up, which is all the books that I read during December, January, and February. In the past, I've done different types of wrap ups. I've done quarterly, I've done monthly, I've done bi-monthly, and I figured this year I wanted to try seasonally. But if you have a preference on the type of wrap up that I do, be sure to let me know in the comments, and maybe if you guys prefer a different type, I will switch it up for the next one. Anyways, we're just gonna go ahead and jump right on into statistics. In total, I read 30 books this winter, 16 books in December, 7 in January, and 7 in February. And the genre breakdown for all 30 of the books that I read was 6 graphic novels, 6 romances, 6 literary fictions, 5 novellas, 3 memoirs, 2 historical fictions, and 1 fantasy, as well as 1 mystery. And I will also have all of the page numbers for each month on screen, as well as my average rating for each month. This winter was a little bit weirder than winters past for me reading because in the month of December, I spent a lot of time trying to focus on finishing my reading goal last year. And I did enjoy my reading experience in the month of December. It was just different and like a little bit weird than what I'm normally used to. But I have to say, as for 2026 so far, I have had some amazing reads. I feel like I have been absolutely loving, if not really liking, almost everything that I've read, which I feel so lucky because there have been so many times where that has not been the case. And it's honestly inspiring me, and I feel like I am in more of a mood to read than ever. And I feel like just because I'm loving almost everything that I'm reading, I hope I'm not jinxing myself right now, but I hope we keep this good momentum throughout the rest of 2026. I am going to try and go in the order that I read these books in, but if it's a series, I'm just going to talk about all the books in the series at once because I feel like that just makes the most sense. So let's go ahead and start with my December reads, and then we'll work our way all the way down to February. We are going to start with a graphic novel series that I read in the month of December, which is the Tea Dragon series. It was so cute, you guys. There are 3 graphic novels in the series, and they're all by Kay O'Neill. The first one is the Tea Dragon Society, then we have the Tea Dragon Festival, and finally the Tea Dragon Tapestry. You get to see almost all the characters in all 3 of them, but the first and third ones are following our main character Greta, and she's a blacksmith apprentice, and she ends up spending a lot of her free time with tea dragons and with the owner of the Tea Dragon shop. And there she ends up meeting a very timid friend, and they slowly become closer throughout the series, and it's really cute and beautiful. And the found family of this series was really sweet too. The second one, the Tea Dragon Festival, is following our main character Rin, and she ends up finding an actual dragon in the forest who has been asleep for years, but he was there to protect their village, and now he's just trying to figure out who he is and how to cope with all of this time that he lost of his life. These were just so cozy, so cute. There's amazing representation in these as well, which is obviously always amazing, but the main reason why I'm really happy there's a lot of representation is because these are for kids, and I feel like it's so important for kids to read a lot of diverse character stories, especially whenever they're young. I genuinely cannot recommend this series enough if you're looking for a great palate cleanser. I believe all of them were also on Hoopla. So if you have Hoopla through your library, you should definitely check these out. And I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure how to rate graphic novels. I feel like the more I read them, the more I'll get used to rating them, but I feel like I would rate all 4 of these 4 stars. Next, I read Simone Biles' memoir, Courage to Soar, and I feel like I didn't realize how dated this was until maybe like a quarter or halfway through the book, but this was written in 2016. So I think it's almost 10 years old by now, but this came out after she went to the 2016 Olympics. This is about her life and all the hard work and other things that she went through in order to get to where she was and become an Olympic gymnast, and just basically being the greatest gymnast of all time. I think because this was so dated, I didn't have the best reading experience of it, but it was still interesting to learn about her life. And I also think that if I wouldn't have watched her Netflix documentary, Rise, which was about her going to the Tokyo Olympics and overcoming all those battles that she went through there, and then going to Paris and soaring once again and rising to the top. And that docuseries was so well done. Highly recommend it if you haven't watched it yet. But I think because that was also very present and I already knew those things about her, I just didn't enjoy her memoir as much. But I also think you could have a better experience if you listen to that, knowing that it was dated, and then watch Rise after the fact. You could kind of get the whole journey and the whole experience together. I feel like I've talked about this on my channel many times before though, but I love gymnastics. I think it is so cool, and Simone Biles and her story in general was just incredibly inspiring. Now we're about to get into my little novella spree that I had, starting with The Deal of a Lifetime by Fredrik Backman. This was about a man who is sick. He's in the hospital hospital and he sees this young girl and she's also sick. And he's only met this girl a few times, but it's pretty obvious what's going to end up happening. It's so sad, honestly depressing and human, but basically he ends up having the chance to possibly save her life. And I just thought that it was very touching. It also talks about his relationship with his son and like the regrets and the things that he wishes that he would have done with his life. And while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the other novella that I read by him in the month of December, which was And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This is about an old man who is slowly losing his memory, and it's about how he tries to come back to the happiest memories of his life, and he really tries to remember the people in his life, but it's also about his family trying to let go and be at peace with everything that's happening. Again, super sad. I think that honestly, if this would have been a longer book, I would have been absolutely wrecked, but it was also very well done. And while we're here talking about Fredrik Backman, we might as well talk about the Beartown Trilogy. I finished the first book, Beartown, in December, Us Against You in January, and then The Winners in February. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about Beartown first because that was honestly kind of the outlier for me in this series. Then we'll talk about the other two books, and then we'll talk about the series as a whole and my experience, if I recommend the series, all of that, because honestly, I had a very conflicting experience with this series, which I wasn't expecting because I feel like so many people absolutely love this series, and I unfortunately did not, and I really was not expecting that, so I really want to talk about it. And I did read all of these books in reading vlogs over the past few months, so I'll go ahead and link those down below if you guys are interested in watching those. The first book in the series, 5 stars. This was perfect to me. A brief little synopsis of the entire series. This is a literary fiction series following the people in the town of Beartown, and everything that happens in this town directly correlates with their hockey teams. Hockey is everything to these people in this small town. So if the hockey team's doing well, the town in turn is doing very well, not just mentally and emotionally, but also because it's a very small town. When the hockey team does well, there ends up being a lot of new opportunities and a lot of politics going on that supports the town, and it's just going to make the town a better place to live. And you get to know so many different characters so deeply during this series. In this first book, you're just following their everyday lives and waiting for a big hockey game that's coming up. And then halfway through the book, something happens that changes the trajectory of everything in the town. And you really get to see not only how the things in the town affect people's everyday lives, but how certain people's everyday lives and the things that have happened to them affect the whole entire town. This was my first full-length novel by Fredrik Backman, and I absolutely fell in love with his writing. I have never loved a format of writing as much as I did with his. There were so many times in this book where he would start each chapter off with a theme, and then he would tell you how that theme directly correlates to so many different characters in the chapter, and then at the end, he would tie it back up again in a bow with that theme, and I loved that. Like, I feel like there was just so much time spent on Beartown. And because I felt that way, and knowing that there's more books in the series, obviously, I was really excited to continue my reading experience. So then I read Us Against You, and unfortunately, I did not feel that way. This is unfortunately my least favorite book in this series. We spent so much time in this book talking about a new character. He's a politician, but I didn't really care about the inner workings of being a politician in Beartown. You already get to see so much of the politics in this town just through how the politics affects our characters. I didn't really need to see firsthand why he was making the political decisions that he did, because I just didn't really care about him. He was honestly kind of insufferable, and whenever his chapters came up, I clocked out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It felt like the first 50 to maybe even 75 pages was just recapping the events of Beartown, and it was honestly kind of driving me a little nuts because I was like, okay, let's get this story going in this part of the book. And not to say there weren't important experiences for our characters in this book, but I felt like a lot of the motivations for the characters just didn't really make any sense for me. It didn't feel like those characters would do those things. And then we have The Winners, which is a literal brick. I was terrified to pick this up. 670 pages, mind you, when the others were like 400 something. This book honestly felt a little bit all over the place to me. There was a lot of characters that we were following, but all of these characters were going on different like side quests and doing different things, but those side quests never really fully came together and were never really grounded in anything. I feel like the one thing that connects all these people is that they are from Beartown and they want what's best for the town, and it has that small town found family feeling. But I feel like to me, just because it's literary fiction and there's not enough plot, I honestly don't think that this needed to be a series. And the writing comparison between all three of these is kind of crazy to me. Beartown was perfect, loved it. Then we go to Us Against You, and it kind of felt like it was just trying to reheat Beartown's nachos, and it was feeling really repetitive with a lot of the themes and the things that we were trying to talk about. And it almost felt like because we were repeating so many things, it was a little bit corny to me. The Winters didn't feel as corny as Us Against You, and there were a few new things mentioned, but the writing and the format from Beartown just wasn't there. So I'm really struggling with this series because I loved the characters, and weirdly enough, even though there wasn't a lot going on in the Winters or Us Against You, and the pacing was dragging just a little bit, I still wasn't bored because I still enjoyed his writing, but it was like the storytelling wasn't all the way there either, but the writing also felt different. I don't know. I just have so many conflicting feelings about this series, and I know I've been talking about this series for a while, so I'll try and wrap it up real quick. But Beartown, I would definitely rate 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. One of my favorite books of 2025, without a doubt. Us Against You, I think I would rate maybe like a 3-star. And then The Winters, I'm thinking a 3.75, maybe a 4, but that's the highest that I would go. I honestly do wish that I would have loved this series as much as so many other people do. But at least, you know, I love Beartown. I'm going to take that as a win. Okay, I have some absolutely fantastic news. Just look at the radar. It's supposed to storm the rest of the day. Isn't that wonderful? I love storms so much. I can't wait. They don't scare me at all. Anyways, another novella that I ended up reading was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is following 2 separate people who are married, and their partners are having an affair behind their back, and they're writing letters back and forth trying to like get proof and figure things out. They end up getting along, and I think you can see where that's gonna go from there. I actually enjoyed it. I really like Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing, so the only reason why I'm probably not gonna enjoy one of her books is because there's something about the storyline I didn't totally love, but I feel like for a novella, I thought it was good. I liked the letters. It made it a really fast-paced read, and I thought the story was interesting. While we're here talking about novellas, let's just knock out the other ones that I read in the month of December. The first one was The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. This is a part of one of the Amazon Valentine's Day collections that they've been doing over the past few years, and this is about 2 neighbors who end up getting trapped in their apartment building, and they end up spending Valentine's Day weekend together. They've never really talked before this, but they end up talking because they're trapped up there and there's nothing really better to do. And I feel like I actually got to know these characters quite deeply for only reading like under 100 pages about them. Our female main character actually has a stalker, which is kind of crazy. So you get to see her experience of trying to overcome that. And then our male main character is going through a divorce. But I actually really like this. If you're looking for a novella to read, I would recommend it. And considering I did not like Sail Remember Me, which is Abby Jimenez's most recent release, I was really nervous about her 2026 release and if I was gonna like that, but this gave me some hope. And then the last novella I read was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This is set around the holidays and you're following this man in this small town in Ireland. His family doesn't have a lot, but they have enough to get by. And I feel like it's that classic holiday spirit thing where you just want to help others. And if that means you're going to be put at a loss for helping them, like so be it. That's kind of what our male main character went through a lot. And he had a lot of internal battle about doing what's right, as well as an external dialogue battle with his wife. I liked the writing of this. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I was expecting more, but it was kind of just fine to me. Another memoir that I read was Bottom of the Pyramid by Nia Sue. She was on Dance Moms and now she's kind of an icon, a political icon, might I add. I love her. In her memoir, she talks obviously all about her life and the personal things that she went through, but she also talks a lot about her experiences going through Dance Moms and most of the time being at the bottom of the pyramid and being the #1 victim of Abby Lee Miller and her honestly insane demeanor, especially towards children. I really liked this. I listened to it and Nia voices it and she did such an amazing job also writing it. I feel like if you love Dance Moms, you should definitely listen to it. But even if you just watched a few episodes here and there like I did, you could definitely get something out of it. Next, I read Good Spirits by BK Borison and I really liked this. I thought that it was really cute. This is dual POV. It's following our 2 main characters, Nolan and Harriet. Nolan is actually a ghost. He's the ghost of Christmas past and he is haunting Harriet. And I feel like pretty quickly throughout the book, they're both confused as to why she's being haunted. Harriet has a lot of issues with a narcissistic person in her life. I feel like we can all relate to that in one way or another. Her and Nolan's love story was very sweet and cute. And I feel like the whole time I was reading this, I had a smile on my face. I feel like this toed the line perfectly of having a lot of fun holiday elements that made me feel in the holly and jolly spirit without being too cheesy, which I really enjoyed. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And the magical realism element in it was really fun. And I really liked their connection. The one thing about the magical realism though, is that it wasn't fully explained towards the end. I feel like the ending was kind of rushed. So I didn't love that. I think that I would probably rate this like maybe a 4.25, but overall probably one of my favorite holiday romances that I've read. The last holiday book that I ended up reading was a collection of 4 short stories and it was called Merrily Ever After by Catherine Walsh. This is a part of her Fitzpatrick Christmas series. The first one being holiday romance, the second one being Snowed In. I read those and absolutely loved them over the past 2 holiday seasons. So when I saw this was coming out last holiday season, I had to read it, and they were so enjoyable. I really liked them. I would rate this 4 stars. They're following all these different side characters that we've met along the way in the other 2 books. I think my favorite ones were probably the second one, which was following our main character Zoe, which is Hannah's sister from Holiday Romance, and then the 4th one, which is following the parents of both Andrew and Christian, who are both of the male main characters in Snowden and Holiday Romance. But the other 2 were also very sweet and fun. These put me in the perfect holiday mood, and I feel like they're a great way to get that holiday feeling without overdoing it. And you can also just like spread out the novellas over the holiday season too if you want. Definitely recommend reading them next year if you didn't read it this year. I also ended up continuing the Emma M. Lyon series. I read the 5th one. These are by Beth Brower. I know I've been talking about this series so much recently on my channel, so I get it if you guys are tired of it, but the one thing I can tell you right now is that you have to read it. It's a historical fiction series set in the Regency era in London, and you're reading our main character Emma M. Lyon's journals of her day-to-day life. There's 8 books out in the series right now. I don't know if Beth Brower plans on writing more, but each book follows 2 months, and you just get to see what Emma M. Lyon gets up to. They are so funny, so witty, so charming. I love the found family. The subplot of romance is great, and just Emma is such a fun character to follow. You never know what she's going to end up getting up to. I have had such an amazing reading experience with this series, and I would definitely rate this 5th one 5 stars. Another graphic novel that I read during the month of December was On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. This is following 2 different storylines, and you have to see how they end up connecting, which I thought was a very fun way to tell the story. It kind of had me on the edge of my seat wanting to read more, especially for a graphic novel. I really love the art in here. And you're following our main character Mia as she works for a restoration crew while she's grieving her lost love Grace, and then you also get to see them falling in love back at school. This is a sci-fi graphic novel with romance and mystery, and I was honestly really liking it until we got more towards the end, when being a graphic novel honestly hurt the storyline a little bit, because obviously you can see everything that the characters are doing, but at some points I felt like I needed to know what was going on in the characters' heads, and I just needed like a little bit more explanation. And I also think with it being sci-fi and not in a world that we really know or have been explained, was a little hard to follow at times with it just being a graphic novel as well, but I still did really enjoy it. I think I would rate it like a 3.5 or 3.75. Then I read The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is gonna be a hot take, so be ready. This is following our main character Avery Graham. She's a teenager, and all of a sudden this billionaire out of nowhere that she's never even met leaves her basically his entire fortune, and she has to go and meet the family, and there's a ton of like riddles and clues, and they're trying to figure out why he left her the fortune. And I read the Natural series by her, and I absolutely loved it. So I was really excited to get into this one and find another mystery series that I loved, and unfortunately just didn't love it. It felt very surface level to me. I don't know if it was overhyped or what, but I just really didn't connect to it or care about the storyline that much. And I feel like I really just wanted more. Again, that might play into the fact that it was hyped for so long. It's an OG Book Talk book. It was definitely a very easy read, but I don't think I'm going to be continuing this series, unfortunately. But even though I didn't enjoy the Inheritance Games that much, little did I know that a 5-star read was going to be in my future right after that one, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Guys, this book is just as good, if not 1,000 times better than everybody raves about it and says it is. The Nightingale is set during World War II in France, and you're following these 2 sisters, Isabelle and Vianne. Vianne is in a small town in the French countryside, and Isabelle is mainly in Paris, so you get to see the story of World War II in France from 2 different perspectives that way as well. Before the war, the sisters didn't really have the best relationship, and I feel like there's a lot of things that go unsaid with them. They also have a weird relationship with their dad too, and all of that kind of gets put on the back burner when the war comes and they have to make a lot of hard decisions and go through a lot of hardship together. But it's also under the surface of everything going on too, so there's a lot of feelings of resentment and a lot of tension throughout the family while they're also going through all of these very deep and hard things. This book had me bawling like a baby at the very end. It was so impactful, and honestly, this is required reading. Reading about history from a fiction standpoint and getting to know characters so deeply and getting to experience and empathize with them with all the different things that they went through in this book is so incredibly important, and it makes it even more obvious to me how important reading is, especially for everyone's personal understanding of other people's experiences to grow. If you haven't read this book yet, I would say look out for your mental health, especially with everything going on in the world right now, and take breaks if you need to, but you guys, you have to read this book. I already filmed this part, but turns out I turned off my camera. The third memoir I read this winter was Be Ready When the Luck Happens by Ina Garten. I grew up with her always on my TV, so she was honestly just a very comforting presence for me growing up, and I've always been very curious about her life, and reading this was very inspiring to me. She had a very difficult relationship with her parents. She got married very young. She was trying to figure out her life. She didn't get thrown into the food scene and knowing what she actually wanted to do with her life until a lot later. And there were quite a few times in this book where things just were happening to her and she felt lucky, but the reason why these things worked out for her is because she had a lot of hard work and dedication that she put into them. So it wasn't just her being lucky, it was her being ready when the luck happened to actually produce something from that luck. And from her learning how to run her business, Barefoot Contessa, and seeing that grow and grow, and then to her having her TV shows and so on. It was a great memoir, and honestly reminds me that I should probably get one of her cookbooks or two and start cooking more. Now to the book that I've honestly been dreading sharing my thoughts on. I actually was filming me reading this for a reading vlog, and then I stopped because I felt like I didn't really know what to say about it because I'm so conflicted on my feelings, and that is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This is an urban fantasy set in Manhattan, and you're following two rival witch families. It's actually a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I really enjoyed the beginning. I thought it was super enticing, and it made me want to keep reading more, and I liked all of the layers to everything going on. And then once it got to the middle, it was just like really messy and kind of felt like it dragged out to me. There were also parts that felt kind of repetitive. It felt honestly a little bit all over the place, storyline wise. And we get a lot of different POVs in here too. I feel like overall this was a cool concept because the two families do deal in the drug and the crime world, but I feel like it wasn't executed in a way that I enjoyed a ton. It was definitely vibes based, I guess, in my opinion. I don't really know. There's also a lot of politics between the families that also made me feel very conflicted and confused, just because that was also really messy, but not like messy in a great way, like, ooh, tell me the tea. Like, that's how it was at the beginning. But then, like, as I kept reading, I was like, okay, like, where's the plot? Like, where are we going? That's just kind of how I felt after I got halfway through this book. So I don't know. Take that for what you will. I don't want to talk about that one anymore. Then I read the first and second graphic novels in the Lightfall graphic novel series, The Girl and the Galdurian and The Shadow of the Bird. These are both by Tim Probert. Let me just say the art in here is fantastic. This is following a girl named Bee, and during these books, she ends up making friends with people along the way as she's going on these adventures to figure out what is going on in her world. I feel like the first one starts somewhere, and then at the end of that one, you end up going a completely different direction, which I thought was kind of smart. And then we're kind of like continuously following that direction. That's how I always feel in a fantastical world. Like, you read the first one and the series is not really what it seems, and then you get diverted in another direction and everything's a lot bigger than you initially thought. The first one, I think I would rate a 3.5. I liked it. It was interesting. The storytelling was good. But the second one is really, whenever the series starts, I think I would rate it a 4. I'm really excited to continue the series. The third one's currently out, but the fourth one's coming out, I think, in the month of April. So I'm definitely going to continue the series this year. I'm really hoping that this has potential to be a favorite graphic novel series. Our main character, Bee, has a lot of anxiety and she overthinks things. And I think that the way that it was illustrated was also very smart. But our other main character, Cad, he's so like brave and adventurous and ambitious. Like, he does not hold back at all. So I find it funny seeing their dynamics sometimes, and they really do bring out the best in each other. Then I read Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This is her debut fiction novel. This book is following the events of a 16-year-old girl named Waldo who ends up falling in love and having an affair with her 40-year-old professor. Honestly, there were a lot of things about this plot that made me feel wildly uncomfortable and weird, but also the way in which she told the story and the things that she was trying to portray. Like, one of the biggest themes in this book, in my opinion, is the theme of addiction. It covers addiction with food, sex, with shopping, and there were so many straightforward and obvious little quippy jokes that she made during those moments that were very like monotone, because she also voices the audiobook of this, and that's how I consumed this book. But her saying these things so dryly made those moments stand out even more to me. So even though the context of the story made me feel uncomfortable, overall, I enjoyed her voice as an author. I have no idea what to rate this book. I'm thinking maybe a 2.5. Like, I understand what she was trying to execute, but I also don't understand why this specific story needed to be told in this specific way so much. But I feel like it also represented like relationships that girls have with their mothers and mirroring their behaviors, and also just the teenage experience. So I don't know. I'm so torn on this book, and I'm not 100% sure what I want to rate it at this point, but please do read trigger warnings. Then I read The Good Part by Sophie Cousins. I really enjoyed this, and I'll definitely be reading more from her because of how much I enjoyed it. This is following our main character, Lucy. She's 26. She's just like done with being 26. She works in the film industry, and she kind of just gets coffee. She's not taken very seriously. She lives in a flat share. She doesn't have a lot of money, and she just wants to skip to the good part of her life. And because there's magical realism in this book, she does. She ends up skipping to a 40-something version of herself where she's married and she has 2 kids and she's the boss now, and she seemingly has everything that she wants. And this is a romance, and I really did like the romance. It was very tender and heartwarming and sweet. But this book is mainly about Lucy's self-discovery, realizing the things that she loves about her life and trying to look on the bright side of things going on. I read this around my birthday, and I would definitely recommend that because I feel like Lucy's biggest realization is that no matter what era or season of her life that she's in, there's gonna be good parts and there's gonna be hard parts, and you can never really get those specific times of your life back, so you just have to enjoy where you're at. And I feel like that's just very important, especially since I turned 25 this year, which no, 25 is not old, but I feel like it is just a time of reflection for a lot of people. It's just one of those ages. I feel like this was definitely a great book to read just to remind me to be happy and live in the good parts of my present moment. I think I would rate this a 4.5. I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read Hurt the Lover by Lily King. This was a book club book with my friends Kristen and Olivia. Also, the Nightingale was too. And weirdly enough, both books that I read with them so far this year have been 5 stars. This is a literary fiction, and we're following our female main character, and you're getting to see her experience different relationships that she's had throughout her life, as well as the things that she's doing and going through while those relationships are happening. I don't want to say much else about the plot specifically because I feel like there were a lot of things that if I would have known, they wouldn't have hit as hard, and I still would have loved it. But I think that the shock factor definitely led me to loving this even more and connecting even more with our female main character. The things that she goes through during this book were just so heartbreaking to me. This book was so beautifully human. She also has a very direct and straightforward writing style, and I feel like I've slowly figured out that that's one of my favorite, if not my favorite writing style, especially because she balanced that with a little bit of symbolism as well as parts that just really get you thinking. And I feel like sometimes whenever authors have a very straightforward writing style, you're like, I know that, I'm not stupid. Like, you don't need to explain every little thing to me. So I feel like she toes that line very well, and I want to read everything that she's ever written now. There is a companion novel to this called Lovers and Writers that I really want to read. I honestly think there's quite a bit of debate whether you should read Heart the Lover or Writers and Lovers first, so I'll have to let you know my opinion on it once I read Writers and Lovers, but I'm really excited to read the next book and just continue reading Lily King's writing because I feel like she is going to be one of my favorite authors that I have discovered this year, and I'm saying that while we're in the month of March right now, so that is a big thing for me to say. I ended up continuing the Windy City series. I read the 3rd one, Caught Up, and then the 4th one, Play Along. These are dual POV sports romances set in Chicago. And it's actually kind of perfect that I'm just talking about these two together because these two follow 2 brothers, Isaiah and Kai, and they are both on the Windy City Warriors, which is Chicago's MLB baseball team. Kai is the older brother, and he's the pitcher for the team. And one day, his son that he didn't know he had ends up getting left at his doorstep. And from then on, he is a single dad. He has all the support from the team and the staff, but the one thing that he can't find the support of is a great nanny that he can actually trust. So his coach that he's really close with, Monty, ends up hiring his daughter, Miller, to take care of Max's son for the summer, and he's obviously not gonna fire his coach's daughter. And it actually works out perfectly because Miller is taking some time off. She is a very famous, renowned pastry chef, but she's been losing a lot of inspiration for it lately, and she just wanted to take a break and spend the summer with her dad. I really enjoyed Kai and Miller's connection, and you know, these books do get a little bit steamy, but they're very fun when I'm in the mood for them. And this is a nanny romance, which is silly, but like, I had an absolute blast reading this. And then the second one I loved even more, Play Along. This is following the younger brother, Isaiah. He plays shortstop. And then Kennedy, who is one of the athletic trainers for the team. This has a fake marriage trope that is honestly so fun. And it was very fast paced. I feel like this is a lot of people's favorite because the other ones do tend to drag in my opinion, but this one was honestly just the perfect length to me. I feel like there wasn't a time where I was really bored. It was just really fun, and Isaiah and Kennedy have such great banter and chemistry. The found family of this series I really enjoy too. Obviously they're brothers, so they're actually a family, but all the other characters that end up coming back and you get to see their lives now that they're happy and in a couple, it's just so cute and makes me feel all the warm and fuzzy feelings. I don't know for sure what I want to rate both of these yet. I feel like I'm gonna wait until I'm done with the series. I have one more book. Caught up, I'm thinking of 4.5, and then play along, I'm thinking of 4.75. I might go up to a 5 stars. I don't really know yet, but I really enjoyed my reading experience with this one. Then I read The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I'm so glad that I read it when I did because it was just around the time of the Winter Olympics, so it felt very immersive to me. This is following 2 ice dancers named Kat and Heath, and they grow up together, and while they're falling in love with each other, they're also falling in love with ice dancing, and they are partners. You can tell that they deeply care for one another, but there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of messiness that ends up happening. A lot of people describe this as similar to Daisy Jones and the Sixth, and I do agree that it has a lot of those same elements. And there were honestly so many plot lines that I was so shocked by. There's also some mixed media in here where you get to see interviews, and I really like seeing other characters' direct perspectives as well. And the chapters were also really short, and you also follow these characters over such a long period of time. And I always feel like the more ages that I get to see of a character, the more I really get to connect and get to know them. I think at this moment I would probably rate it like a 4.75 though. It was really, really good. And then I read A Love Song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. I was really looking forward to this because I read 7 Days in June last year by her in June. Actually, it might have been in July, funnily enough. But I think I actually enjoyed A Love Song for Ricki Wilde more. You're following our main character, Ricki Wilde, and she doesn't really fit in with her family, and they don't really take her very seriously, and she ends up getting this opportunity to move to Harlem, and there she ends up opening her own plant store, and you're following her experience while she's in Harlem. But then there's also another POV that takes you back in the day during the Harlem Renaissance with our main character, Ezra. He's a pianist that is a rising star during the time of the Harlem Renaissance, and you get to learn and see the Harlem Renaissance through his eyes. So there's magical realism, it's a romance, but there's also a historical fiction element, and you also take time to really get to know our characters very deeply. The love story itself took a second to really take off, but I really enjoyed the payoff, and this is more of a faded love story, and the plot itself was just very unique. I really enjoyed this one. I liked both of our characters. I think I would rate it like a 4.25, maybe a 4.5. I did just recently finish this, so I need to think about it, but I really, really liked it. And that was the 30th and final book that I read this winter. Overall, I've had a great winter of reading, and I'm still crossing my fingers that we carry that into the rest of the year. Thank you guys for watching this video though, and listening to me yap for such a long time. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you watched until this far, go ahead and comment down below the snowman emojis so I know who the real ones are who made it till the very end. And if you want to keep up with me on the daily, you can follow my socials. They're linked down below in every single video, and I think that is going to be it for me today. I love you guys so much. Hope you're all having an amazing day, and I will see you guys in my next video coming up very soon. Bye guys. Starting over. Ani Manai Coke. Peace.